Hello there. My name is Chris. You're watching Brick Productions, and welcome back to another episode of brick film projects that were too big to be reasonably completed, but a brick filmer tried to complete it anyways, and now it's not complete. This title is still a work in progress. I'm not inherently attached to it. Anyways, we are here to talk about Bob and Randy episodes 6 and 7. So about 2 years ago, I set out to write the next episode of Bob and Randy in the series, which would have been episode 6. I decided to try and do some sort of apocalypse theme, kind of like a Mad Max, Terminator, Planet of the Apes sort of mashup parody thing. I thought it'd be kind of funny. Well, apparently real life thought it was so funny that we actually had a mini apocalypse of our own. But all of that aside, by the time I'd written up the script, this thing was a 30-page monster. And I really did not want to cut any of it because I thought it was pretty good. So I decided, you know what? Not gonna do one episode, we're gonna split this up into 2 episodes, kind of a part A, part B. Well, this seemed like a brilliant idea, even though 30 pages or so equates to roughly a half hour of animation, and a half hour of animation will take you way too long to get reasonably done. But somehow I thought, what the heck? Why not? Let's just do this thing, see what happens. I think we've seen what happens. So because I have a whole bunch of the episode already animated, I'll go ahead and I'll play it here, so that way you can kind of see what was up. For context's sake, I wanted to try and make this like a mockumentary style, so we follow Val around as she's trying to figure out how the apocalypse went down, and she's got no clue what it is whatsoever. So we'll go ahead and we'll start rolling this, and I'll stop whenever I need to go ahead and explain what's actually happening within the episode itself.
Okay, so, if you're watching this video, then you're probably wondering what in the world even happened. This is the story of me, an average girl named Val. Now, Val had a normal life, you see, but Val never expected the end of the world, because the night Val slept, everything was sound when the end began.
Why are you referring to yourself in the third person?
Artistic interpretation. Work with me here, okay? Now, it all started in my apartment, where I was watching my favorite TV drama, Cooking with Zombie. So, when the season finale was over, I stepped outside and realized that something was off. Apparently, I slept through the end of the world, and no one bothered to tell me. So now here we are, in a post-apocalyptic wasteland with no advance notice. How we got here? I don't know. What happened to cause the world to collapse? I don't know. Do I have an internet connection? No! That's the one constant I have to work with right now. I'm gonna go get a weapon and calm down. How about you? I don't know. Go interview some witnesses or something.
Hold on.
So I think the first problem with the script has become very evident. The main character's voice is very annoying. If you've watched any of my videos, you've probably come across the ones where I did the whole Valley Girl, California Girl voice shtick. I guess it was funny in a couple bursts, or at least my YouTube analytics tell me that, but for a long-term brick film, it is very, very annoying. Now, thankfully, I did soften the effects later on in this video clip, just to kind of make it less awful and try to experiment with making it sound less sharp. So thankfully, the bit that you just heard is the worst bit of the episode. From here, it gets slightly better, so it's more bearable. Now, I tried to do this like in a mockumentary format to kind of mix things up a little bit. I figured it'd be kind of funny if we had a character following around with the camera and everything's kind of from a first-person view. And so to do that, I reached out to one of my friends, a Lego mock artist and classic space enthusiast named Captain Mutant, and asked if he would like to be in the series. Now, there are a couple shots towards the beginning where you do see him slightly off to the side. I couldn't think of a in-universe explanation quite yet for that, how he's filming the whole thing, but then shows up in some of the video. But the idea here is to kind of build a little bit of this mystery around who is this character who's been filming the whole thing.
Ah, my friend, that is a tale as old as time. We are the remnants of a golden age, back when things were more civilized. But when the end began, we were divided into 5 wandering faction. We, the Sand People, are a peaceful folk who wander these sands, selling and trading our wares. Our way of life has threatened the Major Legion, who seek to bring control to the wastelands through law, order, and war. They consider us a minor threat, however, compared to the maniacal and unhinged automobile warriors. In their hopes to surpass us all, the hive of the Crypto Sands seeks to ascend to a higher intelligence. No matter the faction, however, we have all lost comrades to the dark and nefarious cult of sand. There is a legend which speaks of the Endbringer, a powerful relic that will bring all to an end. Or it will unite us all. It kind of varies, legend by legend.
Oh, like a powerful, sword?
Not a sword. At least I'm pretty sure. Could be a sandbox, or a sandcastle, for all I know. But mark my words, the faction to find the Endbringer will bring about the true end of the world. Or maybe unite all the sands. Personally, I lean towards the true end theory here.
Brilliant.
So for this section, I first got to thank two people who helped out a ton. The first is Joko, who did an amazing job voicing the Sand Elder. Honestly, animating the montage was a ton of fun, kind of working around the lines in his delivery. So thanks again for that, man. Really appreciate it. And second, I have to thank Star Wars Studio 100. He's an absolute legend when it comes to apocalypse brick films, all right? His Outbreak series has millions of views, and it has become sort of a legend in terms of large-scale zombie outbreak apocalypse films, essentially. I'm not doing it any justice, but point being. So I talked with him a lot about just the world-building aspects behind creating an apocalypse, and one thing that came up a lot is the idea of different factions. So he helped me develop a couple different factions for this world. And so we have the Sand People, who are kind of these passive, peaceful civilians who wander around this desert apocalypse, living in tents and selling wares and whatnot. We have the Major Legion, which Star Wars Studio 100 really greatly contributed to this faction and actually voices one of the main characters. And this faction is sort of like your military, kind of going around trying to keep the peace. Definitely more of a skeleton military because there's not an actual civilization out here. We also have the Automobile Warriors, which are every Mad Max movie thrown into one, essentially. And then we also had the Crypto Sands, which the minute we came up with that name, all the stuff about crypto and NFT started circling the web, so they're not based off of like cryptocurrency. But we wanted to do sort of this hive mind, sort of Borg-like, pulling a little bit from Planet of the Apes 2 with this whole hive mind underground tech cult, essentially. And then finally we have the Cult of Sand, which originally spawned as a joke between Star Wars Studio 100 and I, but then eventually turned into this sort of zombie faction that's all about sand and they've been corrupted by the sand, and kind of had just this goofy world-building element. Now, unfortunately, the last three factions, the Automobile Warriors, the Crypto Sands, and the Cult of Sand, don't really show up much in this animation. Besides that montage, that's all you'll be able to see of them that I've animated. But as I go over the rest of the script, once we hit the point where there's no more animation, but there's still plenty of script left, I'll show you the designs that we came up with so you can kind of envision where this whole thing was going to go.
Oh my gosh, check this out. I never really knew I wanted a crossbow, but now that I have one...
Ow! My wounded sense of self-esteem!
I don't know how I ever lived without one.
Val?
And look, they had a 2-for-1 sale on cool swords.
Val, did you catch that part about the Endbringer?
The what?
The Endbringer. It's a thing that will end the world.
End the world? Again?
Again.
Are you serious? After I got these new clothes and the new crossbow and my cynical disposition? Do I have to do this all over again?
Well, maybe, if you can find it first.
I don't have time to repeat the end of the world. You're telling me that, for the greater good of humanity itself, I gotta go find the thing that caused the apocalypse and stop the apocalypse from happening again.
Essentially, yes.
Well, you've twisted my arm, Captain. Let's go find the Endbringer.
I mean, sure, the world's ended and everything is covered in sand and whatnot, but really, nothing much has changed. I still gotta get the kids to Apocalypse School, then run errands, then run them again to crossbow practice, then make dinner from radioactive lizard creatures. It's just never ending. Billy! No, Billy, let the mutant crows alone! Excuse me for a second. Billy!
So the Endbringer is supposed to be this MacGuffin element that will cause the end of the world to fully commence. Like, everything just gets obliterated. I tried writing a complicated joke about how it's going to end the end, but it didn't quite work, so I just abandoned that. But the idea here is that Val needs to go on this journey to find the Endbringer and stop the apocalypse. She's way out of her element, she has no clue what's going on, and that'd be kind of where some of the humor falls into place. Now this Knight character here, it's a little bit tricky because I didn't put out enough hints, setup bits, I guess. I don't know. You may have noticed in previous Bob and Randy episodes, I keep hinting at this Knight character, most notably in episode 5. He's supposed to be sort of the next main character in the series. Like, we got Bob and Randy, who are the roommates. We got Captain, who's their mutual weird friend. We got Willard, who's the skeleton detective that, parodies every skeleton character in every Brick film series ever. And then, we have Val coming in as sort of a main character along the way. Well, to cap it off and make it so there's 6 characters, I was supposed to have Cedric the Knight show up. Now, I didn't quite outline how I wanted Cedric to be involved with the story, and I figured, okay, once I laid the seeds here, I can go ahead and expand on him in future episodes, and then he would really become a main character. But at this point, the setup is so sloppy that he kind of just exists.
And that bit you shot before finding me in the market was just a bit too wordy. There's gotta be a better way to show the different factions than just an exposition dump.
Oh, we're too far away to reshoot that.
We'll just have to save it in the edit. Are we even going in the right direction?
I don't know. Ask him.
Listen up, scrubs! You had your chance to be afraid before you joined my beloved Major Legion. But to guide you back to the true path, I bought this motivational device. Oh, look at that. She's a beauty, isn't she?
It looks like a piece of junk, sir.
Don't go mouthing off at me, soldier!
Well, we could make some upgrades.
What are you talking about?
Alright, amateur hour is over. Bob, take care of those upgrades. Major, go home and rethink your life choices. The rest of you, come with me. We've got an Endbringer to find.
Smell that? It's tank oil, son. I love the smell of tank oil in the morning. You know, one time we had our camp raided for 12 hours by the Automobile Warriors. When it was all over, we didn't find one of them. Not one stinking thug. The smell. You know that oil? The whole camp smelled like chaos. Someday this apocalypse is gonna end. We'll be the ones to end it.
So now here we are at the Major Legion camp with faction number 2, the Major Legion. We're trying to go for this sort of ragtag military team sort of aesthetic to it. The Major himself is sort of a Sergeant Johnson-like character. If you are a fan of the Halo games at all, you will recognize the infamous line about the Scorpion tank that Star Wars Studio 109 parodied for this. We also did a little bit of a parody of Apocalypse Now with Private Hayes, voiced by the great Hazy Day films.
Captain Existential. Oh my gosh, it's been so long.
Val, my noble compatriot, welcome to the camp of the Major Legion.
Look at you, the big boss. I'm so proud of you.
Wait, Val, you know him?
Oh, my bad. Captain, meet Captain.
Wait, what?
Captain and I defeated an evil robot with dark roast espresso, and then found abstract art made by aliens. And Captain is an alien on vacation.
Oh. Wait, what?
Captain Existential, sir, we've rebuilt the tank. Excellent work, Bob. Except we gave it wheels, because we ran out of tracks. That's fine, Bob. Honestly, we don't know what to call it now, because the tank doesn't have tanks, but wheels. So, do we call it a wheel now? You leave me confused, Bob. Anyways, let me introduce you to Val and Captain 2.
Captain Mutant.
If the radiation gets any worse, we will all be mutants.
Not if we get the Endbringer first and save the world.
Wait, Val, you're looking for the Endbringer too? You should join us. It won't be easy. Our intelligence tells us the Endbringer may be at the Zero Zone, but it will not be easy to find. There are many dangers out here in the wastes. Heat, radiation, the Automobile Warriors, and of course, the Cult of Sand.
All the more reason you could use some backup.
Then it's settled. We ride at dawn. Look at me, Bob. I'm the captain now. We ride now.
A ride-along with the Major Legion? This is gonna be so great.
I have no idea how I'll explain any of this when I get back to my outpost.
So this was the final scene that I animated before I started wondering about whether or not this was worth continuing in the first place. As you can see, the writing gets pretty clunky. I am not very proud of it, but the idea here was to have Val and Captain Mutant join Bob and Captain Existential to go after the Endbringer now that they actually have a fighting chance against everything else. I think this fails for a few reasons. One, we don't know what else is trying to get to the Endbringer, so we don't know why the Major Legion is necessary. This only pops up a little bit later, so it's very backwards in terms of the writing. Two, the jokes kind of fall flat. This whole Captain Existential, Captain Mutant, Captain, look at me, I'm the captain now. It's lame. I'm not a fan of it, honestly, the more I think about it. And three, there's so much world building thrown at the audience, but you don't understand the actual stakes of the story quite yet. And this is something I really try to avoid in writing in general, be it for brick films or for side projects, and yet somehow I've committed to this sin in my big brick filming project. This scene's a mess. I think this is the one that made me realize if I don't have any proper setup at all, this thing's gonna be a bit of a disaster. But fortunately, here's where I get to have fun with this because I haven't animated the rest of the episode yet. I have the script in front of me though, so I'm planning to kind of walk through the script, show some of the props that I created for this, and show fragments of the screenplay to kind of explain what my thought process was for trying to get this whole operation done. So now we come to scene 4. Everything filmed so far was scenes 1 through 3. Scene 4 involves the Automobile Warriors. The idea is that we have the Major Legion in their vehicles and all of the main characters in this tank. I was going to do some trick photography to make it look like the tank's bigger on the inside than it actually is, and for all these scenes I would use the new road plates to kind of simulate this highway. All my attempts to try and create a rig to make the road plates slide under the vehicles and make it look like they were driving were a failure, and I think definitely a contributing factor towards me questioning the scale of this project in the first place. The idea here is that these Automobile Warriors and these vehicles, which honestly I'm super proud of how these turned out, I think they look really cool and honestly kind of insane. The Automobile Warriors attack the Major Legion, and we're supposed to have this cool chase scene where they're riding along and shooting at each other, and in a sudden maneuver that's supposed to work as a joke, the Automobile Warriors just drive right on by because all the Major Legion vehicles just stop. And they're like, wow, that worked, but oh no, where'd the Automobile Warriors go? And then this is where the Cult of Sand is supposed to start teasing its existence. But as the Cult of Sand moves in on our characters, they would end up taking 2 of the Major Legion soldiers that got left behind in this big chase scene. And so the idea there would be that they get added to their ranks. And now we come in here to scene 5. So the idea in scene 5 is that I'd place all our characters kind of in this dark canyon. The idea being here that they're eventually going to run into Faction 4, the Crypto Sands. Now, as they're all sitting around the cave trying to figure out what's going on, they realize that Willard has shown up. And so our characters are talking with Willard, and it's an ambush. Now they're surrounded by the Crypto Sands. As I mentioned before, the Crypto Sands are supposed to be sort of this Borg stand-in or parody, I guess, where they all speak in unison, have the same exact goals. The idea here is that Willard has now been captured and assimilated into the Crypto Sands, leading us into scene 6, where we find out who is the leader of the Crypto Sands. And it's Randy! I kind of knew this would be really familiar territory of Randy being captured by a super sketchy, scary organization with way too many people and way too many secrets. And I wrote that line into the script here as a joke, but just because you point it out doesn't mean you get a free pass in your script. So the Crypto Sands have them captured, and the idea here is that the Crypto Sands are a hive mind trying to crunch the numbers as a unit and figure out how the apocalypse happened. Bob and crew are well aware that the Crypto Sands are a thing, and they've captured Randy. Bob uses the one thing he can think of to kind of snap Randy out of it, and he plays the Free Baker jingle, and Randy despises that jingle. So Randy's now broken from the Crypto Sands, and now the Crypto Sands turn on them, knowing that they're no longer in their control. A few things wrong with the scene. One, I've never established that Randy actually hates the Free Baker jingle, like, at all. It was a running joke in the previous episodes, but I never came to a scene where Randy was just like, oh my gosh, this jingle's terrible. Second, okay, they break Randy out, but Willard never gets broken out of the Crypto Sands. So technically the rest of the script, poor Willard is still a Crypto Sand. This writing's bad. But fortunately, we're nearing the end of this disaster piece, and so we come to scene 7. The idea here being that now all of our main characters are in the prison cell with the Crypto Sands, and they're kind of thinking, oh man, we're at our lowest point. This is the second act low point, essentially. They're debating about whether or not they can get out of the cell and if they can get to the Endbringer. Val gives this big heroic speech. Captain Mutant pulls out one of my favorite Portal 2 jokes about AIs and paradoxes, and they're able to escape. This probably would have been the easiest scene to animate because it's just dialogue. Now we get to scene 8, which is like the big close of this whole dramatic encounter. They go to this place called the Zero Zone, where the Endbringer is supposed to be. They're racing across the desert, and they get really close to the Endbringer, but unfortunately, faction number 5 is waiting for them. Faction number 5 being the Cult of Sand. Now, the Cult of Sand is supposed to be all zombie and kind of like pale and worn down by the sand. And I guess the little trick I wanted to use for this was use the fleshy faces from like the LEGO license themes to make it look like that they've just been worn down and rubbed by sand for forever. And so now we reach the big dramatic finale where Val has to get to the Endbringer and solve the apocalypse once and for all. Now this part I'm kind of proud of writing wise, but the big twist for this episode is that it's not actually an apocalypse. The idea here is that it's an apocalypse reenactment. So you know how like there's certain historical reenactments, like Civil War reenactments, where everybody like forms up the factions and then does like replays of battles? The joke here is that this isn't actually an apocalypse, this is an apocalypse reenactment for when the future apocalypse actually happens. Now, it's not the best written here in the script, but the idea I thought was pretty funny, and everyone that I talked to about it and kind of reasoned out with thought it was a pretty funny twist. Which means that everybody, except for Val and Captain Mutant, are fully aware that this whole thing was just a game. And so Val loses her ever-loving mind at the thought that she thought the world was actually ending. Everything wraps up, everything goes back to normal. Val's still kind of reeling from the fact that this was all just a game. And everyone thinks that she's pretty cool for having won the whole reenactment. The last scene that I have here is just to kind of wrap up things a little bit with Captain Mutant. So one thing I love about Captain Mutant's like mock artistry and some of his ideas projects is just the classic space vibe that he creates, but with sort of like a modern twist or flair on it. I thought it would be an absolute shame if I did not incorporate that somehow into the script. And so I had an idea for this finale where we would go to Captain Mutant's outpost, and turns out that this whole thing he's been filming was actually a home movie or a film festival entry for like an intergalactic film festival. And so I thought, well, who do we have that's out in space? Oh, we have these two guys, Shaklix and Phil from my THAC entry a while ago. Let's just go ahead and throw them in and it'd be fun. And so that's it. That's Bob and Randy episodes 6 and 7, kind of in a nutshell. So I'd like to summarize what I've learned from this process. This is an autopsy, so we better determine the cause of death for this episode. I mean, I think the first thing is that the script is way too long, way too unmanageable, and on top of that, for all the fluff and stuff that I put into it, it had some continuity errors that you can kind of handwave as it's a brick film. But at the same time, I want to have a high caliber of writing, and the fact that a lot of this just kind of slipped through and kind of got lost in the monotony of the editing process means that this concept should have never started in the first place. It's bad enough having a 30-page script that you want to animate in 2 episodes for a series that has episodes that range from 2 minutes to 15 minutes, but it's bad enough to have all that script be inherently broken. I think that's one of the big risks of long-term brick filming projects, is that it's very easy to work yourself into a position where you hate what you made and you think that you're going to hate what you do make, and unless you have a moment of just pure brilliance, or unless you've planned things out well enough to account for those errors, you're probably going to quit. 2 things before I close this video out. 1, I don't intend this as a sort of, oh, woe is me, my problems are so problemy, or whatever. My hope is that you would find the animation that I did so far entertaining enough, and that hopefully you enjoyed it even. but I also just want to kind of document the mindset behind a big scale project that got too out of control. I've seen a lot of brick film projects that get started and get canceled, and you hear nothing about it. I figure, well, you know what? Let's face the music, call a spade, and discuss why this one just didn't work out. When you have too big of a scale, too big of a script, too erroneous of a script, and not enough drive to really get the project going beyond the time that you expected to get it going, well, your expectations are unrealistic, and your project is probably going to fail. My hope is that if somebody who is also working on a big scale project can learn something from this process, that's awesome, and I wish that brick filmer all the best. Second, I don't know if I want to actually do a Bob and Randy episode 6 at all. But looking back at all the flaws and all the faulty foundations I put into the series, where I have, minor continuity errors, weird episode run times, a lot of stuff that's simply established for the sake of existing but never actually developed, it's kind of shaky ground, and I don't really think I could make quality episodes off of that going forward. It's a bit of a problem when your first episode is like 3 minutes, your second one's about 8 minutes, and the next 3 are about 15 minutes, and somehow you justify yourself a 30-minute episode that, I'll just break it into 2 pieces. It's kind of a problem. Will it return to Bob and Randy? I don't know for sure. Anyways, thank you so much for listening to this ramble disguised as an autopsy, or essentially. My hope is to get another brick film done sometime this year that will be more small scale, kind of return to some smaller projects, but without the weight of this monstrosity kind of hanging over me and keeping me from committing to anything that's big scale. I'm really sorry you guys aren't able to see a final episode of this. It's probably worse showing the animation and then just showing bits and pieces of the overall concept. But my hope is that if you get anything out of this is more of the understanding of what it takes to take a big scale project and actually make it succeed, and how to hopefully avoid the pitfalls in yours that I've documented in mine. For now, thank you so much for watching/listening. I really appreciate the support, and I'm hoping that the next thing I bring you guys will be something a little bit more enjoyable and will actually get finished sometime in my lifetime.